Good morning, students. The topic that we are going to cover today is ASEAN, that is Association for Southeast Asian Nations. Now, this is one of the topic that I have covered in one section only. In other two section, this subtopic was left. Now, this topic is actually from Unit 4. There are last topics of regional organization, namely European Union is there, SAARC is there, Organization of American States is there, and the last one is ASEAN. ASEAN means Association for Southeast Asian Nations. So this is one of the subtopic that was left to be covered, and therefore I'm doing this with you people online. Now, while dealing with ASEAN, this is a regional organization or a subgroup or a topic that can come as a short note or a very short answer only. So you therefore not have to prepare it very comprehensively, but yes, your answer should contain all the points that should be included while dealing with ASEAN, and it should also include India-ASEAN relationship. That means while dealing with the subtopic, you should also include certain lines about what has been the India-ASEAN friendship or what has been India-ASEAN relations. Now I'll start with the topic ASEAN. First of all, you should know it's a regional organization. The name is Association of Southeast Asian Nations. It's a regional organization. Regional organization basically means which is concentrated into a region only. That means it is only for Southeast Asian nations. So who will be the members of this regional organization? All the Southeast Asian nation countries will be the member of this regional organization. And the main aim was to establish and promote political and social stability within the region. So these were almost colonial states. These Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam, Philippines, all these were actually occupied by they were colonized, like India was colonized by the Britishers, they were also colonized. And therefore, to promote political and social stability within this region, Association for Southeast Asian Nations was established, ASEAN was established. The motto of ASEAN is one vision, one identity, and one community. That means they all have one vision. One vision is to promote the political and social stability, to work towards economic development of the entire region. One identity, they can be called as an ASEAN people. That means they can be called as a Thailand citizens, Malaysian citizens, Singaporean citizens, but overall they can be termed as an ASEAN citizens. That means this will promote one identity to them, and all them belongs to one community, one larger community, that is ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So the motto of ASEAN is to promote one vision, one identity, and one community. Not on 8th August 1967, it is observed as ASEAN Day, as it was formed on this day. So on 8th August 1967, people observed, the people who are these 10 countries that are part of ASEAN, they observe 8th August as an ASEAN Day because on this day, ASEAN was formed. Now, where its secretariat basically means where the headquarters of ASEAN is located, it is located in Indonesia. In Indonesia, there is a place called Jakarta. So in Jakarta, the ASEAN secretariat or the ASEAN headquarters is located. What are the member nations? If I talk about the member nations, all these 10 countries are the members of ASEAN. Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia. So that 10 countries, these 10 countries are the member nations of ASEAN. Now we come to what has been the genesis. Genesis basically means when it was formed and who were the founding fathers. So it was formed in 1967 by the declaration, by the signing of the ASEAN Declaration. It is also known as Bangkok Declaration. This declaration was signed in Bangkok. Bangkok is there in Thailand. This declaration was signed over there, and it led to the formation of ASEAN. So where it was signed in Bangkok. Therefore, it is known as Bangkok Declaration or ASEAN Declaration. In 1967, 8th August, it was formed. Founding fathers are the one who initially signed this document. See, founding fathers are the one who have founded this organization. That means they have participated initially also, but later other members add to it. Like for example, when I was doing European Union with you people, I told you it was found by only 6 countries: France, Italy, Germany, there were other, Luxembourg was there. So there were very few countries who joined initially, but later on the membership gets expanded. So the founding fathers of ASEAN were Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. These countries founded it, but later it was joined by Brunei, Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, and Vietnam. Now, ASEAN community is comprised of three pillars. Basically, three pillars are the areas where it focuses more. So there is political security community, ASEAN political security community, that it focus more on the political security front. Second is they focus on economic front also, and third they focus on socio-cultural community also, social culture front also. Basically, all the areas, if you can see, are covered. So they want to promote all these areas within that region. They want to enhance their political and security. They want to enhance their economic development, and they also want to enhance their social and cultural development within the region. And these are the main pillars of ASEAN community. They want to rest this ASEAN organization on these pillars. That means they want to work to promote all these areas: political stability, security, economic development, social cultural development. All these areas needs to be promoted. Next is, if I talk about the objectives of ASEAN, see, objectives of any regional organization can be summarized into some points which are very common to all. You can say that all these regional organizations, their main agenda will be to make that region stable, peaceful. There should be non-intervention. There should be promotion of their cultural, economic, political, social growth. There, to promote trade within their own region. All these can be the common points which you can state in any of the regional organizations. So while dealing with European Union also, while dealing with SAARC also, you can mention the same points. You just can twist them, make them in your own language, and you can write these points. Objectives of all the regional organizations will be almost same. So first objective is to accelerate economic growth, social progress, and cultural development for a prosperous and peaceful community of Southeast Asian nations. That means to accelerate economic growth so that their economic growth becomes more and the area becomes more prosperous. Second, to promote regional peace and stability. This is one of the points that every regional organization wants: peace and stability within the region, because without peace and stability, that region cannot prosper. So to promote regional peace and stability, and by abiding the rule of law basically means whatever the law is saying should be followed, and principles of United Nations Charter. So I've already dealt with the principles of United Nations Charter. What are the principles? Like to promote peace and friendship, to be the center for harmonizing relations, to solve international disputes. All these are the principles of United Nations. And basically it is said that these regional organizations, the ASEAN, will be following the principles of United Nations also. Third is to promote active collaboration and mutual assistance. Active collaboration means they'll be collaborating with each other on dealing with any of the issues, any of the economic, social, cultural, technical, scientific, or administrative related issues. They'll be collaborating with each other, and they'll be assisting each other also mutually. What this will promote, if all the countries are not rich in everything. There are some countries who are very prosperous. There are some countries who are rich in resources. There are some countries who are rich in wealth. There are some countries who are rich in technology. So mutual assistance will help each other countries in order to share their resources and to develop together in a much better sense. To collaborate, the fourth point is to collaborate more effectively for a greater utilization of agriculture and industries, the expansion of their trade, the improvement of transportation and communication facilities, and to improve the living standards of the people. See, basically, they want to promote more trade, more investment, more industries, more agriculture. They want to develop all the sectors of their economy in order to raise the living standards of the people. See, it is a very simple point that any region, in fact, any country will want their own sectors, all the three sectors: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary is your agriculture, secondary is your industries, and tertiary is related to transport and communication or infrastructure. All these three sectors, if they'll be improved, if they'll be developed, then obviously this will raise the living standard of people. People will have better incomes, people will have better living standards. So this is one of the objective of ASEAN also. To promote Southeast Asian studies. Southeast Asian studies, that means within the region, the people should also know, the Thailand people should also know what has been the history of Vietnam or Cambodia. The people of Malaysia should also know what has been the history of Singapore. So to promote East Asian studies, that means all the nations should know what has been the history and the development among all these 10 nations. And last, to maintain close and beneficial cooperation with the existing international and regional organizations. So there are existing international organizations also, like WTO, WHO, ILO, World Bank, IMF. They want to have close and beneficial cooperation with international organization also, as well as other regional organization like SAR, BIMSTEC, the Organization of American States, European Union. So they want to establish close and beneficial cooperation with all the international organization as well as regional organization. Next is strengths and opportunity. Now, what has been the strength of ASEAN? First of all, it has greater influence on Asia Pacific trade, political and security issues than its member could achieve individually. See, if you become a collective group, if it's a collective group of 10 countries, then obviously you can influence other countries more. Individually, no country has that much strength to influence other countries, but together, what they can do, they can have their main collaborated political and security development. They can have enhanced trade. So ASEAN commands far greater influence on Asia Pacific political and security issues than its members could achieve individually. As a group, they have more influence on the region. Second is demographic dividend. If you people know, it constitutes third largest population in the world, of which more than half is below 30 years of age. See, demographic dividend means how many young people are there in the country. That becomes dividend. Dividend is basically an advantages for you. If a country has more old age people, then this is a very much problem, because you have an aging population with you, and aging population will not be able to deliver much, will not be able to the aging population will not be able to contribute more in the economy. But if you have more young people which are below 30 years of age, then obviously that will be very advantageous for you. If I talk about economic, it is the third largest market in the world, larger than EU and North American market. So is the ASEAN is the third largest market in the world. Market means other countries can export their commodities and it can be sold in ASEAN. It's the sixth largest economy in the world, third in Asia. If I talk about Asia, it's the third largest economy in Asia, but in the world, it's the sixth largest economy. ASEAN has signed a lot of free trade agreements with China, Japan, South Korea, India, Australia, and New Zealand. So FTA, free trade areas, which reduces the tariff barriers, has been signed with all these countries. Next is fourth most popular investment destination globally. So people, if they want to invest in a country, they would like to invest in all these ASEAN countries, Thailand, Malaysia. If you people know, Singapore is the hub of commercial activities. So people like to invest, the other countries like to invest in ASEAN countries. And ASEAN share of global exports has also risen from 2% in 1967 to 7% by 2060, indicating the rising importance of trade to ASEAN economic prospects. So initially in 1967, it was only 2%. So they used to export only 2% of their commodities, but now it has rose to 7%. So there has been a growth of 4% more exports globally. This is one of the most advantageous thing. So if you have to write about the strengths and opportunities, obviously ASEAN as a group has a greater influence on the region. A lot of demographic dividend is there because it constitutes third largest population in the world of people more than 30, below 30 years of age are more over there. That means more young people are there in ASEAN. You can write about all these data. It is third largest market in the world, larger than EU and North America. It's sixth largest economy in the world. FTAs has been signed with other countries. Fourth most popular investment destination, and its global exports has also rose from 2% to 7%. Then we come to the challenges. We have to write the challenges which ASEAN face. First of all, there is a lot of gap between rich and poor ASEAN member states. That means some of these countries which are there in ASEAN have very high GDP and very high incomes of the population. The population income is very high. But there are other countries like Cambodia where the GDP is very less and even the people's salary is also very less. So there is a lot of gap between the rich and poor ASEAN countries. Countries like Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, they are very rich and prosperous. But if we come to countries like Vietnam, Laos or Cambodia, they have a quite low GDP or low incomes for people. Many regional initiatives are not able to incorporate it into national plans as the less developed countries face resource constraints to implement a regional commitment. Now, if they have a certain regional commitment that demands a lot of money to put in, demands a lot of resources to put in, then the less developed countries like Cambodia are not able to incorporate this plan because of their shortage of resources. Now, all these are mixed with democracy, communist, authoritarian states. So, if you people know, Vietnam is a communist state. There are other countries which have authoritarian regimes. Some are democratic, like Thailand, Malaysia. They are democratic in their context. So there they have mixed political system. A common issue between them is the South China Sea. I told you China wants to claim the South China Sea. South China Sea is a sea which lies between. If you see the map, it lies between almost these Southeast Asian countries. China has a claim over the South China Sea, and this is one of the one of the challenge that these ASEAN countries face. And lastly, ASEAN has been divided over major issues of human rights. If you people know, in Myanmar, there's the Rohingya problem. I've already explained what is the Rohingya problem. These were the minority Muslim community who resides in Myanmar. They have been asked to move out of Myanmar. Myanmar government does not want them. There is a lot of human rights violation which is happening to these Rohingyas. So these are some of the challenges that ASEAN faces today regarding human rights. And an inefficient dispute settlement mechanism is there in ASEAN. That means the mechanism to settle out disputes is very less, like it is not very effective. So if there is a trade related dispute, if there is some other related disputes, political related dispute or economy related dispute, the dispute settlement mechanism is very weak, or it is inefficient, whether it will be in the economic or political sphere. So the dispute resolution mechanism is very weak. This needs to be strengthened. So there are certain challenges. There is a lot of gap between rich and poor country. They have a mixed political system. South China Sea remains the common disputed region among all the ASEAN countries, and ASEAN countries has been divided over major issues of human rights. Some country favors this human right violation, others do not. And lastly, they have inefficient dispute settlement mechanism. Lastly, you should know what has been India-ASEAN relations. Now, India's relationship with ASEAN is a key pillar of our foreign policy and the foundation of Act East policy. Now, initially, India, during the 1991 Narasimha Rao government, we moved towards look east policy. So initially we were having a look east policy. Look east policy means that we should cooperate. We should also look towards our east. East means all these countries, ASEAN countries, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, all these countries should also be focused. But after 2014, like coming up of Narendra Modi, when he became our prime minister, he announced that instead of looking east, we should have Act East policy. That means we should start engaging more, collaborating more with these ASEAN countries. India has a separate mission to ASEAN and East Asia in Jakarta. So India has a separate mission to ASEAN. India and ASEAN already has 25 years of dialogue partnership, 15 years of summit level interaction, and 5 years of strategic partnership with ASEAN. So this has been our friendship, 25 years of dialogue partnership we have, 15 years of summit level interaction we have, 5 years of strategic partnership we have with ASEAN. If I talk about economic cooperation, ASEAN is India's fourth largest trading partner. That means in India has a lot of exports which comes from ASEAN. And India's trade with ASEAN stands at approx 10.6% of India's overall trade. So if I talk about India's overall trade, 10.6% is with ASEAN. And Indian exports to ASEAN stands at 11.28% of our total exports. So whatever we are exporting to other countries, almost 12% almost, we give it to ASEAN. And there is a ASEAN FTA, ASEAN and India FTA that has been signed between both the countries. Apart from this, India has pushed a lot of transnational projects that seek to weave the region together. So there has been a lot of connectivity projects that has been taken place between India and ASEAN. I'll discuss one by one. India has set up an Indian mission to ASEAN in Jakarta and has set up an ASEAN India Center, which is housed in New Delhi. So there is an ASEAN India Center that has been created, a place where both of them can sit together and collaborate. This is situated in New Delhi. There is a Kaladan multi-modal transport project which will connect Myanmar to Northeast India. So there is a project that has been signed, a transport project, a transit project known as Kaladan multi-modal transit project, which will connect Myanmar, the country which is very near to India, to northeastern part of India. So there will be a connectivity project that has taken place. There is Tammu Kaleva Kalemyo sector of the Indian-Myanmar Thailand trilateral highway is a work in progress, as is expected to create a new dynamic in India's multi-facet ties with the region. So there is a Tammu Kaleva Kalemyo sector. That means it's a trilateral highway. There will be a highway that will be developed between India, Myanmar, and Thailand. These countries will be connected together. And this is one of the vision, this is one of the project which is going on, which is the work is in progress. Next is India has also launched a tracking and data reception sector in Vietnam. And what this will happen, India has opened up a tracking and data reception center, which will help in making it. They have a technology of remote sensing. That means all these pictures, whenever that will be taken from Indian satellites. So if there is a possibility of a disaster or any calamity, or if Vietnam wants to know where its mineral resources lies, this can easily be tracked by these remote sensing data that will be available from Indian satellites. So Indian satellites will be working from this reception center in Vietnam, and they'll be tracking where a calamity can happen or where are the mineral resources of Vietnam which is located. And this will help in both disaster management also in case of any calamity, and in case of if ASEAN countries want to know where their mineral resources are and they can work upon it, then obviously these mineral resources will be much more available to these ASEAN countries because of the help of India. So this has been the India ASEAN relationship. You can write in this that India has moved from look east policy to now act east policy. The partnership is very long. On economic front, these are the data that India is the fourth largest trading partner. Almost 12% of the exports goes to the ASEAN countries, and these are the connectivity models that are that are working in progress, and this will connect the ASEAN countries to India for better relations among the two. So this is the major thing you have to write. You have to start your topic by introducing what is ASEAN, the three pillars. You have to briefly elaborate the objectives of ASEAN, the strengths which are there in ASEAN, like the population, the young population is very high, which is an opportunity for them. You can write some of the challenges, like the South China Sea dispute is one of the challenge. Some of the countries are very rich, others are poor. This is one of the challenge. Then you can briefly elaborate the India-ASEAN relationship. This will be the end of your topic, and this is in fact the end of my lecture as well. If you have any queries, I'll be mailing all the notes, the material, and the PPTs of this the same to you people very soon. That will be shared to you very soon. In case of any queries, you can write it to me. My mail address is swati.saxena@alc.edu.in. Thank you so much.